Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for stopping by again today. If this is your first time checking out my videos, you're welcome. Please, if you're yet to subscribe to my channel, please click on the subscribe button to subscribe and also on the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. So today's video is on how to draft shoulder darts bustier bodies. Okay, so I've drawn out some lines. I've made my basic bodice pattern and I will take you through the lines I have. So the first line is my shoulder line, and from my shoulder to 8 inches is my chest line, and to 9 inches is the bust point line. And I have from shoulder to 12 inches as my under bust line, and I have a half length of 15 inches, and I have extra half inch for joining in case you want to join it to your peplum or to your skirt. And I have my half of my shoulder measurement as 7 inches. Okay, and I have my bust span measurement, which is 8 inches divided by 2 is 4 inches, and I added extra half inch to that because I'm drafting as if I'm drafting on my fabric. I have placed this 4.5 inches on both the bust point line, the under bust line, and on the half length, and I've ruled across the points I've made on these lines. I'm drafting on a paper, but I'm adding all my allowances. So that is the line I have. Okay, so I'm taking my neckline, and I'm taking a neck depth of 3 inches and a neck width of 3 inches, and I'm ruling out my neckline. So the next thing I will do now will be to take my darts on the half length and on the under bust line. So on the half length, on the side towards the armhole side of the bust span line, I took 1.5 inches darts, and on the inner side I took half inch darts. Okay, so the dart you take depends on how big the bust is. Then on the under bust line, I will take 1/4 inch more than what I took on the half length line. So on this other side I will take 1.75 inches. I'll take 1.75 inches, and on the other side I will take 0.75 inches. I'll then connect the darts on the points on the half length line to the under bust line. I'll connect the points. So what this means now is that on the under bust line I have half inches more taken out for that than what I have on the half length. So on the half length I have 2 inches that taken out, and from the under bust I have 2.5 inches taken out. And please note that the dart you take depends on the bust size of the bust of the person you're drafting or making the blouse or top for. You can either take a bigger or a smaller dart. So now from the bust point line I came down by 1 inch, and I'm connecting the dart legs on the under bust to the 1 inch I came down by. I'm using a curve ruler to connect from the under bust, the dart on the under bust, to the 1 inches I came down by from the bust point, and I'm doing it for both sides, and that's how I'll connect the darts. Next thing I will do now will be to take the shoulder dart. So for me to take the shoulder dart, I would measure from the neck width. I will measure what I have remaining on the shoulder line, and I have 4 inches. So I will divide that into 2, which will give me 2 inches. And remember that I said I'm adding all my allowances. So to that 2 inches, I'll add half an inch allowance for joining. So I would note this 2.5 inches from the neck width. So I am connecting this 2.5 I've made on the shoulder slope. I'll connect it straight to the bust point line where I have the bust span line coming up. So I would connect the 2 points together on the bust point. Now for me to take my dart, the dart you take also depends on what you want. So on the inner side I will take a dart of half inch, and on the other side close to the armhole side I will take a dart of 1 inch. So I'm taking a total dart of 1.5 inches. That's what I want to take out for this tutorial, but you can also decide to take the same the exact that you have on the waist, you took on the waist on the shoulder. So I'm connecting my dart from the shoulder to the bust point line. I'm connecting directly to the bust point line. Okay, you can also decide to connect these points quarter or half inch before the bust point line. You can decide to stop quarter or half inch before the bust point line. So now that we have taken out these darts, to avoid shortage, we need to return or replace the darts. So I'm replacing the darts I have, the 1.5 inches I took out. So from where the shoulder, my normal shoulder 7 inches stopped, I added extra 1.5 inches along the shoulder slope line. And because I would also need to allowance to join the two parts together, so I added another 1 inch extra for joining allowance. Then I would also replace the darts all along the chest region. So for me to do that, I would find what I have from my shoulder slope, my normal shoulder slope to the chest line. I would find the midpoint of that, like we normally do when we want to draft out the front armhole. So I would find the center of that, and from there normally would come in by half an inch. So I'll come in by half an inch, but I would not make my armhole curve yet. So I will check what I have, the dart I'm removing from this point. Okay, I will check what that is, and from this point I made, this half inch I came in by, I would replace that dart, which is about 1 inch. I would replace the dart. Okay, so I will also add extra 1 inch for joining, since I've added joining allowance on top. I'll also check what that will be removed from the chest line region, and it's about half inch. So I would also replace that on my bust, the chest line, where I've added my bust, quarter of my bust measurement. So now I have replaced all these darts. I'll also add the 1 inch for joining also that I did for the upper part. So this now will form my new, this is where my armhole will be, my front armhole. I will start joining as you see me do, from up to the middle point and then to the chest line. Okay, so for you to draw out your armhole curve, you have to first replace all the darts you're cutting out. And if you're also drafting like I did, adding all the allowances, you also replace your allowance 1 inch for joining. That's half inch for joining the center front and the side front together. So that's what I have done. So I'll go through this again. So I checked what I removed from my shoulder slope, and from the 7 inches where my shoulder, half of my shoulder stopped, I replaced that and also added 1 inch allowance. And also where I came in by half an inch, I checked the darts I had removed, I will be removing, and I replaced that and also added extra 1 inch for joining. I also did same for the chest line. I checked the darts I would remove and also replaced that. So I'm going to add 1.5 inches side seam allowance to this measurement. So on the waistline, I will impute quarter of my waist measurement plus the 2 inches that I would remove, which will give me 9.25. I'll also add 2.5 inches side seam allowance, 1 inch for joining the darts and 1.5 inches side seam allowance. So I'll connect the measurements from the chest line to the waist line. Okay, so that's it for the front pattern. I'll also add half inch joining allowance on the shoulder. Okay, so that's it for the front part. So before cutting out, we'll go through the back part, the drafting of the back pattern. So for the back part, I have drafted out the basic bodice pattern. So we'll go through the lines. I have a zipper allowance of 1.5 inches, and the neck depth for the front is 1 inch and the same neck width, and the shoulder is also the same, 7 inches, half of the shoulder measurement. But for the shoulder slope, I came down by half an inch. For the back, the front, I came down by 1 inch. So shoulder to chest is same as the front, 8 inches, and to the waist is 15 inches, and I added the same half inch for joining I did. So I also imputed quarter of my bust measurement on the chest line, which is 8.5 inches, and I made my armhole curve. I've also imputed quarter of my waist measurements on the waistline and also added extra 1 inch for that, because on the back part I'm taking a dart of ½ inch on both sides for on the waistline. Also, the bust span measurement is same as the front, 4 inches. Half of it is 4 inches plus extra one half inch, making it 4.5 inches. Okay, and all my measurements, take note, starts from the zipper allowance line. So I would also divide the shoulder, what I have on the shoulder, into two, and I'll also add ½ inch to that, and then connect from the shoulder to the chest line. For the back, you connect to the chest line, and I'm not taking any dart away from the shoulder for the back part. So that's basically it for the back part. So I'll bring back the front part, the front pattern, and place it side by side with the back so that we can see what we have before cutting them out. So this is it. We have the front pattern and the back pattern. Okay, this is what it looks like. So I would go ahead and cut out the front pattern and then the back pattern. So dear viewers, please, if you enjoy watching this video, give this video a thumbs up, and if you're yet to subscribe to my channel, please subscribe, and also remember to click the notification bell close to the subscribe button so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. And also share this video with your friends, and you can leave your comments in the comments section. So I'm almost done with cutting out the front part. Okay, so I've cut out the front. So this is what the front part looks like. So I'll go ahead and cut the back part. So I'll cut out the back part as well. So as I was cutting out the back, I remember that I did not add my joining allowance on the shoulder. Remember, we added 1 inch joining allowance to the front, so I will do the same for the back. Though we did not take out any dart, we will need 1 inch to also join the side back and the center back together. So I've done that. I've added the allowance on the shoulder, on the midpoint, and connecting to the chest line as you see me do. So that will be where our shoulder, our armhole will be at the point where I added the extra 1 inch for joining, since I've added all allowances to the pattern. So I would go ahead and cut out now. So I forgot to say this when I was cutting the front part. So when you add all those allowances on the shoulder parts, I know that the armhole looks weird, but don't worry about that, because by the time you cut out the darts and then you join together, you still arrive at the same shoulder measurements, and the armhole will also look normal. So because of this, in my next video I will show you the application of this shoulder darts bustier we've cut out. I would be making a shoulder dart bustier top. So please subscribe if you have not subscribed, so that you'll be able to see that when I upload the video. So these are what the patterns look like, the front pattern and the back pattern. So thank you for watching. Please like this video, give this video a thumbs up, please subscribe if you are yet to subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.